The Concrete-Encased high school girl murder case. A confession shatters the silence. March 1989. In a juvenile detention center in Narima, Tokyo. An 18-year-old boy, known as Boy A, was being questioned about a separate assault case. The atmosphere was routine until a single, unexpected inquiry from an investigator caused the boy's composure to crumble. In a trembling voice, he whispered, "I'm sorry. I killed her." These few words marked the beginning of a revelation that would scar the national consciousness of Japan forever. It was the start of the Concrete-Encased high school girl murder case, a crime often cited as the most horrific in Japan's post-war history. 41 days of captivity. Unimaginable abuse. A 17-year-old girl eventually found in a state that defied human comprehension. Why did no one save her? How could these boys commit such heartless atrocities? Today, we look deep into the abyss of this darkness. Portraits of broken homes. The four boys at the center of this tragedy shared a common, haunting foundation: the total collapse of their family lives. The leader, Boy A, was a young man of significant potential, possessing enough physical ability to be recommended to a high school for judo. However, he turned to violence as a rebellion against bullying by his seniors and the emotional vacuum of his home, where his parents lived in a state of silent divorce. At home, he was a tyrant, once beating his mother so severely that her entire body was covered in bruises. The other three, Boy B, Boy C who provided the house, and Boy D, all grew up in similar shadows of neglect and parental indifference. Their parents, paralyzed by fear of their own children, were unable to intervene or offer any moral guidance. Using the second floor of Boy C's home as their lair, these boys forged a twisted brotherhood. They spent their nights roaming the streets of Tokyo, engaging in what they cruelly termed girl hunting, fueled by a growing, collective madness. The start of a 41-day nightmare. November 25, 1988. Junko Furuta, a 17-year-old student at Yashio Minami High School, was cycling home from her part-time job. She was an ordinary girl, a daughter with a future full of promise. Suddenly, Boy A and Boy C ambushed her. After knocking her off her bike, they approached her by pretending to help. Using deception and the feared name of a Yakuza syndicate, they coerced her into captivity. She was taken to Boy C's house, a home where C's parents and older brother were also living. For the next 41 days, the sounds of suffering and the presence of a terrified stranger were constant. Yet, the family members chose a path of willful blindness. Driven by a desire to avoid conflict and a deep-seated fear of the boys, they remained silent. This wall of silence became the final barrier between Junko and her survival. The hand of salvation that never reached. In the midst of her ordeal, Junko made one desperate attempt to save herself. While the boys were sleeping, she crept downstairs and dialed 110, the police emergency line. But fate was agonizingly cruel. Boy A caught her mid-call. When the police called back to the house to verify the emergency, A answered with a chillingly calm lie: it was a mistake. Following this failed escape, the torment intensified. The boys stopped seeing her as a human being. To them, she was merely an object used to vent their suppressed rage. Boy A would mock her by singing popular songs while inflicting pain, systematically destroying her spirit. Her heart-wrenching plea to simply go home was drowned out by their laughter and endless violence. A heartless end and a concrete drum. January 4, 1989. The 41st day of her captivity. For a reason as trivial and selfish as a loss in a mahjong game, the boys subjected Junko to a final, fatal assault. As the boys prepared to go out later that day, A checked on Junko as she lay motionless. He asked, "Are you okay?" It is reported that she whispered back, very weakly, "I'm in pain." Those were her last words. In a room where she was finally alone, her life faded away. Panicked by her death, the boys began a gruesome cover-up. They placed her in a travel bag, put the bag into a drum, and filled it with concrete. In a bizarre final act, Boy A included a videotape of a TV drama Junko had mentioned wanting to see. As A later admitted in court, he did it not out of pity, but because he was terrified of being haunted by her spirit. Even in the face of death, their only concern was for themselves. Judicial judgment and the juvenile law. The discovery of the crime ignited a firestorm of public fury. Some magazines took the extraordinary step of publishing the boys' real names, arguing that the brutality of their crimes forfeited their right to anonymity. However, the court's verdict left the nation in shock. Because they were legally minors, the ultimate penalty was off the table. Boy A was sentenced to 20 years, while the others received shorter sentences. The wall of the law stood firm, prioritizing the potential for rehabilitation over the severity of the crime. This verdict remains one of the most controversial in Japanese history, sparking a debate on juvenile justice and the rights of victims' families that still rages today. An endless tragedy. The tragedy did not end with their release. Years later, several of the perpetrators were rearrested for committing further violent crimes, proving that the cycle of violence is not easily broken. Now in the 2020s, reports indicate that 2 of the perpetrators have passed away, one from illness and another under suspicious circumstances. But their deaths do not bring Junko Furuta back. Her life remains frozen forever at the age of 17. We must not look at this as just a strange incident of the past. The collapse of the family, the indifference of the community, and the darkness in the hearts of youth are still present today. To honor Junko's memory, we must continue to tell her story, not for the horror, but as a solemn reminder of what happens when society chooses to look away. May her soul finally find the peace that was so cruelly taken from her.